Right. Well, good morning, everybody. Hope you're having a good week so far. It is Wednesday. We're halfway through our week. We are gathered here today to go over our Washington College Grant Connect. The newest pathway we have is the SNAP/FAP pathway. And we're going to go over this pathway and the overview of the General Washington College Grant Connect program, just as a refresher and for those who may be new here. So I'd like to introduce us today. I'm Gabrielle Mutua-Wurst. I'm the Associate Director for Need-Based Programs in the Student Financial Assistance Division. And we are presenting today, like I said, for Washington College Grant Connect. And Carly will be doing part of the presentation as well. Carly wants to introduce yourself.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm Carly Curley. I use pronouns she, her, and I'm the Assistant Director for Need-Based Programs. Lucky and happy to be with you here today.
All right. So what is our agenda? Our agenda today, we're going to be covering an overview of the Washington College Grant Connect program, also known as WCG-C. And our newest pathway to Washington College Grant is our Early Path to WA Grant. This is the SNAP pathway to Washington College Grant Connect. And we're going to review the student process, and we're going to move on to the Washington College Grant Connect Checker and Seesaw. And Carly's also going to go over the awarding, and at the end, we will have some time for your questions and answers. So we're going to begin with the Washington College Grant Connect. So what is the Washington College Grant Connect? This is a pathway for students who are enrolled in certain public benefit programs as defined by law and approved by WSAC to automatically income qualify for the maximum Washington College Grant. All right, so many of you are familiar with the Washington College Grant Connect program. This program was designed to reduce the initial barriers of students completing or having to complete a financial aid application. So under this program, this pathway to Washington College Grant through the Connect program, students do not need to do a financial aid application, a FAFSA or a WASFA, to be initially considered for Washington College Grant funding, where in fact they actually are income qualified for Washington College Grant automatically by being in one of the public benefit programs approved under Washington College Grant Connect. Next slide. All right, so students, like we said, students who meet eligibility under this category are referred to being eligible under the Washington College Grant Connect program. And the Washington College Grant program is still Washington College Grant. It's just a different pathway to qualify for it. How did the Washington College Grant Connect come about? As you may know, under a second substitute House Bill 1835 back in 2022, the legislation allowed for automatic Washington College Grant income eligibility for students receiving any of the following benefits. It was initially approved for 3 DSHS programs: the Age, Blind, and Disabled, Essential Needs and Housing, and Pregnant Women's Assistance Program. It also, under the original bill, applied to their dependents. But after doing more investigating and working with DSHS, it was found that none of these programs actually have dependents. So that part of the bill was not implemented because the programs didn't have dependents. And in July 1st, 2023, we effectively implemented and approved the Economic Security for All, otherwise known as EXA program, as a pathway to the Washington College Grant Connect. So we have DSHS and EXA under the original Washington College Grant Connect program. Okay, next slide. So today we're going to be talking about the newest pathway to Washington College Grant Connect, and this new pathway is the SNAP pathway. Under HB House Bill 2214, which passed in 2024, it expanded the automatic Washington College Grant income eligibility to students who received the following public benefits in the 10th, 11th, or 12th grade. And this is beginning in the 25-26 academic year, which, as you know, that is the year that we are currently in. The two programs that were expanded to the 10th, 11th, and 12th grade are basic food and the food assistance program, so both SNAP and FAP. So you're going to hear this new pathway referred to in different ways. And just to caveat, because this program is so new, there's a lot of it still under construction, but we wanted to bring it out to you folks so you had an early information on it prior to it going public with marketing out to the rest of the state. So you are the first to hear about it prior to students and to counselors really being promoted under this pathway. So internally, for us in the financial aid sector, we are referring to it as the SNAP pathway under Washington College Grant Connect. And the reason for that is we wanted to make it simple for, simpler, should I say, for our financial aid community to understand what this new pathway is. It is a part of Washington College Grant Connect. It is not a different pathway. Well, it's a different pathway, sorry. So now I'm getting the terminology kind of messed up. But it's Washington College Grant Connect, and this newest pathway is for those students who have the SNAP benefits. So therefore, it's the SNAP pathway. For the students, the marketing messaging to the students and the public is the Early Path to WA grant. So this is to encourage students to understand that they are eligible to receive the Maximum Washington College grant because they are receiving, or their families are receiving, SNAP or FAP benefits. And we wanted to make the marketing encouraging for students to go to college and know early on that they have the funding to go straight into college after high school, and to not call out publicly that they have public benefits. So if a student comes to your office and say they have the Early Path to WA grant, they are referring to the SNAP pathway. You will be seeing marketing materials coming out soon. Everything is still under review and waiting approval. So there might be some slight changes, like I said, in the programming. However, we are presenting to you today what we know today, and we will be updating you as any changes come along. But for the most part, we have the policies in place so far. So there will be some tweaks. Just want to caveat that out. So for the Washington College Grant Connect, like we mentioned, there are different pathways to receive Washington College Grant under Washington College Grant Connect. And so that was the HEN, the PWA, ABD, EXA, and SNAP for the, acronym alphabet soup for y'all. We do have all the programs listed there. And so these are the pathways to Washington College Grant through the Washington College Grant Connect. So I want to just take a breath here and just see if there's any questions so far that I can qualify for you at this time. If you do, please put them in the chat and we're happy to answer.
Thanks, Gabi. I don't see anything in the Q&A feature yet, but people are welcome to put them in there and let us know what you're curious about.
Perfect. Thank you. And just to let you know, we are compiling a frequently asked questions document. So any of the questions you might have, I see a hand raised, actually. But before we go to Nancy, your questions are welcomed. And like I said, we will be using your questions to help complete the frequently asked questions document that we'll be sending out shortly. So was there a question?
I can't see the hand raised, but okay. Yeah, okay, great.
Yes, the SNAP pathway is also for FAP recipients. That's correct. And Carly will get into a little bit more. We'll get into a little bit more explanation in the further we get into the webinar. So great question. All right, so we're going to go now into the SNAP pathways. I know we're just saying SNAP pathway because we don't want to have that mouthful of SNAP FAP pathway. So perfect. So Carly, if you could move on to the next slide, please. Okay, so the new pathway. So again, SNAP and FAP pathway is available as a pilot to high school seniors this year. Again, we're trying to get this implemented for the 25-26 academic year, which we all know we're currently in and are into it, almost over, right? So this is going to be launching as a pilot, and we're gearing it towards high school seniors. So those who are currently in the 12th grade and that are going to be graduating this year. So after this year, so this is going to be a learning experience for all of us. We're doing the slow launch on it. After this year, it's going to be expanded into the 10th and 11th and 12th years, high school grad years, beginning in the 26-27 academic year, so next year. So currently seniors will be able to receive an academic year's worth of Washington College grant maximum funding as long as they meet all of the other Washington College grant criteria. They don't need to do a FAFSA or WASPA initially. And they will need to verify that they are in SNAP or FAP to be able to receive benefits. Carly is going to go over later on in her part of the presentation about how a student is going to be verified and approved as being under the SNAP pathway. So again, who qualifies? So we're talking about the 26-27 awarding year. So current high school students who are graduating this year are eligible to be awarded maximum college grant in the 26-27 awarding pilot year. So their family units need to be a member of, they need to be a member of a family who is receiving benefits under the Washington Basic Food Program, under the SNAP or the FAP program. They will need to submit documentation through a new application student portal that is called BEAM. So if you hear us referring to BEAM, they are the vendor who has created this very simple and efficient portal for us. And also to let you know that with the other programs we do receive data sharing from them, so we know automatically who are Washington College Grant Connect eligible. However, we are still working on that part of the process for our SNAP FAP recipients. So we currently don't have a data share agreement to be able to identify those students. So they will be required to submit their documentation to us for approval. Next. And so just a recap for the SNAP pathway, again, they just need to, they have to meet all of the same criteria that any other Washington College grant recipient receives. The only difference is that they are automatically income qualified by demonstrating that they have financial need through the SNAP FAP pathway in the 10th, 11th, or 12th grade. And they need to enroll in college within a year of graduating high school. And, which is not on here again, they do not have to do a FAFSA or a WASPA for the initial period. Although we do always encourage students to complete their financial aid applications, as you know, we want them to qualify for all of the aid that they're eligible for. So encouraging them to do a FAFSA or WASPA to get the state aid, and federal aid or institutional aid is always preferred. All right, so from here, I'm going to slide it on over to Miss Carly and let us know if you have any other questions.
Thanks, Gabi. Just a note, we do have some chat available to host and panelists, but if you do put a chat in there, only me and Gabi are seeing it. So please put your questions in the Q&A feature so that we can make sure that everyone can see them. So just an FYI, just wanted to let everyone know. Okay, I get to talk a little bit more processing. And so for any of us that are FAA types or former FAAs, we love a process and a step-by-step type thing to go through and kind of just see the nuts and bolts of the program. So first, we're going to talk about just a little bit about what happens for these students that are in the program. It's a little bit different by the agency and the type of benefit that they're receiving. And so you can see here kind of just a little bit broken down into the three different types of pathways that we currently have. So for our HEN, PWA, and AVD folks, they're going to receive a mailed trifold from our office, and it's going to contain some information, and we'll give you an example of what that looks like here shortly. The second is for EXA, they actually receive a letter that has a combined signature with their program person and our director, Shannon, that is noting their eligibility. And so that comes from the local workforce development boards to their customers. And then for the SNAP pathway, or SNAP FAP pathway, as we were talking about, student completes the application, and we'll talk a little bit more about application here in a moment, on the Beam platform. And once approved, they actually get a certificate of eligibility. Now, you may be wondering, Carly, these seem very random, but actually a lot of these things are written in the law that we're required to provide for students or clients or customers, depending on how the agency refers to them. And also just up to the agency. So EXA, they wanted to make sure there was an official letter for their customers that they received, noting their eligibility. So kind of different ways that they're being notified of this information. And then on the WSAC side of things, for EXA and our other group from DSHS, our HEN, PWA, ABD folks, we have a data sharing agreement in place. And so what happens is WCG-C eligibility checker is updated monthly with that information. It's an automatic import. For Beam, we're still determining that, like Gabi said previously, we're still working out the nuts and bolts here. And so we're still working on our data file, but it is going to be transferred directly into the Washington College Grant Connect checker, just like our other agencies here. However, the frequency in which that occurs, TBD. So we'll let you know as soon as we know. The good news and what you can get from all of this is it's all going to remain the same for you as FAAs. For those who are joining us, you could still rely on the WCG-C Connect checker for your students. Okay, so here's that trifold we were talking about that gets mailed to the HEN, PWA, and ABD folks. It has some good information for them, kind of tells them a little bit about WA Grant and how you can qualify. It is specific to the program, so you can see here, this is an example for our ABD customers. And something to note is it connects them with a website that was built to talk about the Washington College Grant Connect program. And so this is really an interesting way that they find out. And we do hear from a lot of the customers or clients on our phone line or through our financial aid email asking questions about this. So it's been really effective. Here's that letter from EXA that we were talking about. This letter, like I said, kind of notifies them, hey, you don't have to complete an aid application. You can start going right away. And I think it includes some bridge information in here, but that'll be updated here. It's signed by the director of, like I said, of workforce development, and then our director. So what you can anticipate as a financial aid office is you may actually see someone bring in a tangible letter into your office and say, I'm eligible for Washington College Grant Connect. And so that's just something to recognize. They may have this or they may email it to you. And so what you can do is you can look in the Washington College Grant Connect checker to see if the student's in there already. If they're not, you can always reach out to us. There's some information in the program manual to help you kind of guide what we need. And we can always add the student to the checker if for some reason there's a delay in the data and them getting put in there. So more than anything, we just wanted you to recognize, here's something that a student might bring to you and why they might be bringing that to your attention. Something I failed to mention earlier is that we talked about the data share for the other programs that are already established. And right now, the reason why that we're going to be using the Beam platform is because we don't have a data share agreement that allows us to just receive the data directly. And so when we talk about Beam, this is a process that we have in place as an alternate means to get student information so we can make sure that they qualify. But feel free to let us know if you have questions about that. And then lastly, for the SNAP pathway, we're going to have a certificate that will automatically be emailed to them. And that's going to be through the Beam. As far as we understand now, it'll be through the Beam portal that will be sent to them. And it will have some information about their eligibility, just letting them know, you're eligible for 1 year. And we put the application in quotation marks because it's really just a verification of benefits. It's not meant to be an intense application that replaces the FAFSA or WASFA, nothing like that. It's supposed to be a simple way to verify their benefits so that we can make sure that they're included in this program. Okay, lastly, we'll talk a bit, summarize kind of that student process and how it breaks down for all our students. So basically, they get approval from their agency or through the Beam application. So they're going to get an approval through Beam or that letter from EXA, for example, or they already have the benefits through our other programs. And then the next step is they're going to apply to the colleges. So they're going to want to, make sure that they apply to any colleges they want to attend. On the college side, you can check and confirm WCG-C eligibility. That's the same for sponsors. I'm not sure if we have any apprenticeship folks in here, but that's the same thing. They can check the WCG-C eligibility checker, whoever's managing the awarding for WGA. And then really students are going to want to connect with the financial aid office. This is going to be really the piece of connect for them that will answer any questions they have about awards they might be eligible for, the timing of their award, verifying their WCG-C eligibility. And so we really thank you folks for doing that work with these students and getting them ready to go and get enrolled into these various programs. So before I move into the SNAP pathway student process and the Beam application, I see we have a question here. So for the purpose of enrolling in college and within 1 year, would participating in Running Start fulfill this requirement, or would this be a standard college enrollment external to any dual credit programs? I'm assuming Running Start doesn't count, but just want to be sure. Thanks. Yeah, excellent question. And I think that kind of used to be a really understanding with the College Bound program, which actually that doesn't count for College Bound anymore either since July. So and the way that we're approaching this is a little bit different from really tracking enrollment. So right now, I will say, caveat right now, our understanding is that, for example, if a student graduated June 2026, they would have the following academic year to qualify for WCG-C. And so it's literally an academic year, and that kind of aligns with our WCG-C eligibility checker. You'll notice that it's going to give an academic year eligibility, and so that's what we're planning to do with these students. If that changes for some reason and we understand that differently, we'll absolutely connect or communicate that to you. But all that being said, it kind of has to do with when they graduate and then the following academic year that they have. And again, sorry, people cannot see your questions in the chat, so please put them into the Q&A feature so we can make sure that everyone can see them. But let me see what else we have in here.
I just wanted to check. I'm going to chime in here real quick. I have been answering some of the questions in the webinar chat, and it says it went out to everyone. So I just want to confirm, are people, and you can do raise hand or whatever, are you seeing those responses in the webinar chat? Yes, okay, great.
Thanks, Gabi, appreciate it. Okay, so I think we only have one more left in here. How does this impact interim reporting when they technically won't have an ICE or WASA transaction number on file? So I think that exists right now. And I think that's a great question because we're going to have to see. Okay, we did have someone say they're not seeing the questions or responses. Okay. So I think with the interim reporting, there is a way to be able to not put a transaction number for students that are WCG-C eligible. But I want to look into your question a little bit more, Tony, and I'll make sure to get back to you how that will specifically work. But also, we can put it on our FAQ. So appreciate you asking that. Okay, I'm going to move on to the SNAP Pathway student process, and we're going to talk about the new, which is the Beam platform. So let's go here. So, like we've been talking about, they're going to have to do an additional step, and the reason is because there isn't a data share agreement. So we'll see. Hopefully, if that does come into play, that will kind of change some things for folks. But for now, we have this excellent, simple platform called Beam, and they'll be validating their benefits using this platform. And here's kind of an example of what the login screen looks like. So one thing to note is there is a box that says use a password, but students when they initially apply or parents, guardians, they are not able to use a password because they don't have one yet. So if you're working with a student and you have some questions about that, or if they have a question, just have them select the send me a link option. That will get them ready to go. What happens is they put in their email address, and then it's going to send them a link directly to the email they put in, and they'll need to check that email to be able to log in. Something that's different about this application or this verification is that it can be completed either by the student or the parent or guardian. So it doesn't have to be just the student completing the information. Either can complete it, and you'll kind of see what that looks like here in a moment. So this is kind of an example. Thanks, Gabi, for being our example person for what they receive when they get an email from Beam. And it's basically simple. Click on the sign in button, and you're going to be moved directly to the Beam platform. When you get there, the student is going to have to put in some information, kind of noted by these pencil icons. The student will need to put in their name, their phone number, and check the box. However, their email will roll into the application from the link. So they've hit continue. Where did they land? They landed into the actual application portal. And like we said, there's still some work to be done on this. So Beam we're still updating language. Some of these screenshots may have old language. So you see here, there's the WA grant for public benefits. We're talking about early path to WA grant. So you'll see some changes as you kind of walk through, or if you have a chance to look at the Beam, or if you're looking at it later. So we will make sure to update you in this process. We might have a future webinar as things are changed, and we'll just keep you up to date. But we wanted to make sure that we give you as much info as possible, as much as we know as possible right now. But like we said, subject to change. So a student or a parent guardian is going to go ahead and select the Start New Application box, nice and big, brown. They can go ahead and click on that and start the path. And so there's some information here. You will see information about the Washington College Grant or WA grant, kind of an example of like what this is. And like I said, language is still being worked on here. You see that the word applications highlighted. That was just a screenshot thing, so don't worry about that. But it is a reminder that it's more a verification of documents and not an actual application for students. It gives them some information about what this could be used for. Also, that they're going to need to upload some information, and we are going to change the language to say you are required to upload that documentation to prove your SNAP benefit status, and talks a little bit about what that looks like. And then gives them some information about the application process itself. So, what's going to ask for, how long is it going to take? It's secure. You'll get a decision by email. So just gives them some information as they're completing this process. Okay, so they've done their information, they've read the FYIs, because we know they're going to read everything that we put in front of them. And now we're going to begin the application process. So you can see here, click on begin application, and then we're going to be asking for some personal information. So here's where a person indicates whether they're the parent or guardian applying on behalf of a student, or they're applying for themselves, and then they're going to enter their legal name into this application. Legal name is important so that we can match up all records within our system, and so that's kind of why it uses that language. So more info. What grade are you in? So really important for this year, it's a pilot program. And so only 12th graders are eligible to be put into the Washington College Grant Connect program for 2026-27. We are working on a process where if they put a different grade, we'll still have the information and they can still complete the application if they want to. However, it will direct them to say, hey, you can log out now. You're actually not eligible for this year. So that's a work in progress coming soon. They're going to have to put in an SSN or ITIN. Again, this is to link records within our system, so it's really important, and we needed to get this information and date of birth. Information about their school district, information about gender, race, and ethnicity, and they'll answer some questions there. And then this is where they're going to put or upload verification of their benefit status. And so you can see here, there's a couple different ways to do that. So first would be a benefit verification letter from DSHS, or even a screenshot of their client benefit account portal. That will work. And we're going to kind of show you what those look like here on the next screen. They can take a picture and upload it. There's various forms that they can upload. And they're going to go ahead and do that by clicking on the upload button. Again, here's an example of what those documents look like. So here's an example on the left of a screenshot of their client portal. And then on the right, you'll see a letter from DSHS. So those would be acceptable documentation. Once they've had that done, they can go ahead and review their application, make sure everything looks right. As you can see, like we said, very simple, just a couple questions to answer, upload verification documentation. If everything looks good, they can click on confirm. If they need to edit something, there's an edit button where you see that little magnifying glass. They can go ahead and click on that and change anything they need to, and then they can click confirm to finish the process. All right, next they're moved to a statement and electronic signature. And so they just need to read, not false information, and supply their electronic signature, and they can submit the application. And then they're going to receive a message that tells them what the next steps are. And on the back end, we have a case manager or, admin site that we're going to be reviewing these documents, making sure the documentation is correct. And that's where we will either approve or connect with a student to provide documentation that we might need if something is not looking correct. So that's kind of the next steps. And then hopefully they'll move into approval, and that data will stream into the Washington College Grant Connect checker. So here's what they receive. There's a little sample email, thank you for applying for this. Feel free to log back in if you want to see your status. It will show them where their case is. It calls it case number, and it'll tell them like whether it's approved or what status it is in. They can always take a look. So there is some verification that they've completed the process. And that is the Beam platform. Gabi, was there anything in there that you didn't answer that might be helpful for us?
Just wanted to throw out there that, when students come to your office and, they say they're part of the pathway and they're not in the checker, it would be really helpful if once we know exactly the URL to use, we will share that out, that we can maybe direct students to the URL so that they can upload their documents. When in doubt, please, you can always direct the students to us at our Fine Aid email, which is where the students are going to be contacting if they have any questions with the Beam platform. But anyways, we're always happy to help the students get connected. Please reach out to us with any students or questions that you have regarding the pathway or any other financial aid.
Yeah,
And
and
we did.
Calva. Oh,
Oh,
Christina.
yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
sorry, I just see it. Okay. Thank you, Christina. Really appreciate your comment. And the question was, is there any room for conversation to call this out as something other than the SNAP pathway? I'm part of the BFEP program, and I'm thrilled to see FAP recipients will get supported through this. I also worry about the confusion it might create by calling it SNAP. So, Christina, I think thank you so much for your comment. And yes, we can absolutely have that conversation. I think we're trying to simplify that, but if you think calling it SNAP FAP, or if you have any suggestions of what that could look like, we'd love to hear. So thank you for your comment.
Yeah,
Um,
I'd like to kind of jump in here for that one. So again, what I want to stress is we're calling it internally the SNAP pathway for the ease of the financial aid office connecting it to the Washington College Grant Connect. But again, the public facing is the pathway. Um, sorry, Carly, what is the official name that we
Early
have?
pathway for WA grant.
Yeah, so the official name is Early Path to WA Grant. So that is what the benefit navigator should be referring to it as. The high school counselors working with students should be using the Early Path to WA Grant. And again, this is just something we use internally with our financial aid community, and our FAAs should be aware that it can be referred to as either way. But if they come in with Early Path to WA Grant, our FAAs should know that it's a SNAP pathway to the Washington College Grant Connect. But great statement there. That is something that we considered very much so when coming up with the wording for Early Path to WA Grant.
Thanks, Bobby. And then someone asked about the different types of acceptable documents. And so we talked a little bit about that earlier. Let me go ahead and here's a screenshot. So basically it is confirmation of their client benefits within the portal, the DSHS portal, client portal, or a letter from DSHS talking about their benefits. In Beam, it will kind of talk through that information. So it'll say, SNAP or FAP, verification letter, or the status verification in the client portal. So it kind of gives them the instructions when they're doing the upload. But here's an example of what those look like. Let's see. Another question. Will documentation be checked against something to confirm they are legitimate letters? I'm concerned with the influx of fraud in Washington that this process can make it easier for fraud to make its way into colleges. It's a really excellent question. Gabi, I don't know if you know more about the conversation of fraud in terms of that, but I do know that we're going to have a social security number and date of birth information, and I'm not exactly sure. I know that we blocked it out on the client portal, but I think we might have that information available to us. But Gabi, any other info you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Fraud is a conversation that is front and foremost right now with WSAC. We have numerous committees working on different aspects of the fraud. So we are all very, very attuned to it. I don't know all of the details about how verification of the documents are being done at this time. This is, again, our opportunity for learning. We are going to be working these details out. I know there is some talk about AI training and different ideas, but I do not have the final information on that, but it's a great question, and we will bring this up the chain to those who are working more on the fraud front and have a better understanding how the Beam platform is working. And we will put that on our FAQs. It's a great FAQ question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And lastly, looks like we have a question about, is this path also available to students in programs such as Open Doors and may complete a GED instead? This this is an interesting one because it actually does call out high school for these students. So a GED doesn't actually work for this pathway. And so it will work for the other pathways to Washington College Grant Connect, as that's not called out in legislation. But for this particular pathway, it is called out for just high school students. So that could include homeschooled students. and, private school students, but it doesn't include GED, unfortunately. So thank you for asking that. It's a really key distinction. Okay, we're going to move into the WSAC side of things. So if you're not familiar with the Washington College Grant Connect eligibility checker and Seesaw and how those play together, and how you can find out information about your students, this one is for you. This section is for you. And so the main thing you want to know is that all these pathways funnel down into the Washington College Grant checker. And so as we talked about earlier, the timelines for when that will go into the checker and things like that are still to be determined for the SNAP pathway. However, the other folks are getting in there on a monthly basis. So something to remember in terms of like how often they're in there. But also really important to remember that you should be checking your students often, because they are entered monthly. You may have new eligibility mid-year. And so then that way it's not a surprise for you when you go to do your interim report, for example, and you're doing your interim and all of a sudden you're like, hey, what happened? How come they get maximum college grant now? That would be the reason why. Maybe they have mid-year eligibility. So something to be aware of. Okay, so we built this checker as a way for schools to identify their students. If you know anything about WSAC, we love a checker. So we built a checker for this, and it's a way for you to identify them. You can connect with this checker by going to the programs menu and then go to WCG-Connect. You'll want to click on the WCG-C eligibility checker link to access it. Okay, so several different ways to search for your student. So if you're just looking for a student, this is a good way to do that. Select the academic year, and you will have to put both date of birth and the first and last name for the student to look for them this way. So that's an easy way if you're just kind of looking for one student's information. Likewise, with our other checkers, you can dump a bunch of SSNs into this box and you can search for the students. So it can be separated by commas, spaces, or new lines, whatever you want to do. You can put them in this search box. Or the other way is to upload a file of SSNs, and it gives you some more information about how those can be separated and kind of the format. And as well, you'll need to select the academic year you're looking for. So once you do that, you're going to get some results. Believe it or not, the checker will give you some results. And so what you can see here is, information about the student. A couple things I'd like to highlight. One, it gives you the eligible year. So it'll give you the academic year they're eligible for. It will tell you when they've last been put into the checker. So for example, here you see some that are from July 2025 and some from October. It'll also tell you the agency. It's not going to give you as much detail to tell you the program, and that's just to keep it anonymous for the student, but you'll know kind of what agency they went through. And so that will kind of give you an idea of maybe what documentation they've received if you need to help assist them. Once you have all of these results, you can download the selection and they go into a CSV, which hopefully you can upload into your system and use that to kind of put the WCG-C eligibility. And if not, we just encourage you to kind of work with your IT team to see if that's a possibility for you for ease for awarding purposes. Oh, one other thing I wanted to mention is if you see these highlighted boxes under the WCG QER, that means that student is in Seesaw. And so you can see those little boxes with an arrow that will link to the student record in Seesaw if you're curious. And it also gives you CBS eligibility if they are. That is an important thing to note because students are not CBS eligible unless they complete a financial aid application. So that's kind of another thing you may think about for a student. You're like, oh, they only did qualify for WCG-C. They haven't completed an application. Maybe I should work with them to tell them, hey, you should do one so you're not leaving aid behind that you might be eligible for. So that's just something to note. Same likewise with passport to college, they would have to complete a financial aid application. And just as an anecdote, we will say that we've noticed almost every student completes a financial aid application in this program thus far. So we don't know what that will look like with this new pathway. Maybe there will be more students that don't initially complete an application, but we really have seen a lot of students complete the financial aid application as well. And so, we know that is due to work that you're probably doing as well as our partners. And so thank you so much for doing that for students. We always want them to maximize their eligibility for aid. Okay, so just a couple notes about Seesaw specifically. For those of you that are not in the FAA community, or maybe you don't do interim reporting, you may not be as familiar with Seesaw, but this is kind of a place where our students live, where reporting happens, where requesting funds happen in the WSAC portal. And so what you're seeing here is a screenshot of the student detail record. So this is a given student, and you'll see a link that links to the WCG-C checker that they're eligible. And so that's one way to know. You can look at the student detail record. And like I said, it'll link back to the checker. If the student is not awarded the maximum Washington College grant, so say they have an application on file and maybe their MFI is 75%. And so you've awarded them the 75% MFI award amount, but they actually are eligible for the maximum Washington College grant no matter what. If with a caveat, which we'll talk about in a moment, that if they aren't awarded appropriately with the maximum Washington College grant amount, you're going to get an edit. And for those that do the interim report, you are very familiar with edits, and we will give you a little reminder, hey, they need to be awarded Washington College grant regardless of their MFI. And MFI is the median family income for those that are less familiar with that. So speaking of awarding, let's just talk about real quick what that looks like for our students. So how are MFI levels determined for Washington College grant in general? There's 3 ways that this happens. They complete a FAFSA, they complete a WSFA, or they're in the Washington College Grant Connect program. And it's just a great information to just remember that Washington College Grant Connect in itself is an income eligibility. So it's not a separate program. It's not a separate fund. It's an income eligibility for WA grants. So that's a really important key distinction if you're thinking about, what is this program and how do is it a CBS? What is it? No, it's an income eligibility for Washington College grants. So this is a good way to think of it. They can complete a financial aid application, or they could be, a recipient of some benefits, and therefore they qualify automatically for maximum Washington College grant. Now, they do have to have other requirements. And so Gabi went through these a little bit earlier, but in order to receive Washington College grant, all of these other requirements have to be true. So while they have the income eligibility piece and they've demonstrated financial need by being in one of their programs, they still have to have earned a high school diploma equivalent. They have to have not earned a bachelor's degree. And like we talked about for the SNAP FAP pathway, specifically, a GED doesn't work for that pathway, but it does work for others. So all of these things must be true for them to receive WA grant ultimately. So they automatically qualify for maximum Washington College grant awards, and we just kind of have an example of our award chart from this year. It's all the way on the left-hand side. That's the amount they will qualify for. Here's examples for our 4-year institutions, likewise for our 2-year institutions, and just kind of a reminder that the WA grant for apprenticeship amount is currently the CTC amount. Things are changing up for 2026-27, which we will also talk about in a future webinar, but just be aware that's kind of the amounts that they should receive. Okay, our biggest question, do students really get the maximum Washington College grant, even if their financial aid application shows a higher MFI? And so our answer is yes. Students are income eligible for the maximum amount of Washington College grant, regardless of calculated need, as long as it's awarded within the cost of attendance. And of course, being in financial aid, we all know that our favorite answer is, it depends though. So the exception to this rule is if there's even $1 or more of federal or state need-based aid awarded, and then it cannot exceed need. So basically, need is not a factor if there's no other need-based federal or state financial aid awarded. And then it just has to stay within cost of attendance. If there is even $1 of federal or state need-based aid, then need becomes a factor for this award. So really, really great question. I totally understand receiving this question as well, because it's like, well, the application says this, why would they get that? And that's just part of the purpose of this particular program. We're here for resources, everyone. So we wanted to provide you resources for where to get help and where to go. First, for the Washington College Grant team and general financial aid questions, feel free to contact us at WCG if you're FAAs. And then students and families, like Gabi talked about, can go to the FNAID email or call, and anyone can call our toll-free line to receive some help. Likewise, for the WA grant for apprenticeship folks, you can see there's an apprentices-based email and then FAAs and sponsors email as well. I know they're happy to help with questions too. And coming soon, as an 80s kid, this just reminds me of when you rented a VHS and there was always that coming soon section. But basically, we have some things on the way. We talked about, we're giving you the info that we know right now. We're going to give you everything we have. There could be some changes. We're going to do our best we can to provide you updates with those changes. But here's some things to expect. You know there's going to be a new program manual. This is estimated to come out around June 2026. Of course, we'll let everyone know. The SNAP Pathway FAQ. We're going to have an early path to WA grant webpage for folks. And then, of course, we'll send out email guidance. And this is just my time to remind you, if you're not on our distribution list, so if you don't regularly get our guidance, things like that, just write into the WCG email. We'll make sure to get you added so that you can receive that guidance as it comes out. All right, you all, this has been quite a lot of information and time, and we're so glad you're here. I see a couple questions in Q&A that we'll take, but please feel free to keep putting them in there and we can make sure to address those. Okay, so one person said, question for the caveat. So say only Pell Grant is given, which is need-based, but can exceed need if only, say, outside scholarships, other non-need-based aid. In that case, could they exceed? So I think what you're saying is for Pell Grant, there's other rules like with scholarships and what is considered need-based aid or not. I think that is the case when it comes to, I think if you're asking if they can receive the maximum Washington College Grant with scholarship funds, that's not federal or state need-based aid. So yes, it would need to stay within cost of attendance. However, if they had Pell Grant, that would be a federal need-based aid. So it would have to fit within need. So I think that's what you're asking. Let us know if you're not. Next is, do you have a chart or can one be made that shows the different situations or requirements for the WCG-C students? I don't think we currently have a chart. We definitely have a lot of information in the program manual. And so but we can take that suggestion and let us know kind of what you're thinking of what that could look like. Are you thinking of like a flow chart, something like that? And if so, we would probably put that in the program manual, the new program manual. So just let us know and we're happy to see what we can do.
Yeah, on that note, I think we could, right now, as these pathways expand, it really does make sense to make a comparison type of a chart. So thank you, Jessica. I will go ahead and work on something and hopefully that's what you are thinking and I can send it to you to make sure that is what you're thinking and we will share it once it's done. Appreciate
Thanks,
that.
Bobby. All right. Yeah, I love that. So any other questions for this morning information bomb? Gabi, thank you so much for keeping up with the chat, putting info in there. Okay, y'all. Well, it looks like no other questions, but you know how to reach us. Gabi and I are available. Feel free to reach out to us if you have more questions. Like mentioned in the chat, we will absolutely put this recording and PowerPoint up on our website, the FA resources page. So, if people weren't able to attend or anything, they can go ahead and access it there and let us know as questions arise. We're happy to help anytime. We appreciate you. We appreciate all the work you're doing. And we know this is a new pathway and it's a little different. So thank you so much for attending today.
So real quickly, there is a question from Michelle asking where she can find the WCG-C program guide. That is all encompassed in our Washington College Grant and College Bound program manual, which is on our financial aid resource page. And maybe Carly, if you can throw that the link to the resource page in the chat, that might be helpful for those who don't know It's a really great resource to keep, bookmarked, because that is where we post a lot of our guidance and we have everything up there. So if you miss any emails, that is the place to look for the most current guidance and program manuals.
So many webinars you can watch. I know you have a lot of time to do that. And so, no, we appreciate it. But yeah, truly, if you did miss a webinar, we're going to post it here. We're going to post our guidance. We're in the middle of a WASFA application review. There's information there. There's just so much information for you should you need it. So I posted the link here for everyone. Any other Q&A? Are we good to go?
And
I
thank
think
you
we're
again,
good.
everybody, for your participation and your questions. Keep them coming. It's going to help us build a very comprehensive Q&A. And that will help us develop the policies. We try to anticipate everything that we can and learn along together as we go down the path. Thank you all.
Thank you all. Have a great day.